Hey, how you doing? So this week we're in the south of England taking on the South Downs Way. And this video is day 4 of our 4-day trek. And the South Downs is a national trail that runs from Winchester to Eastbourne on the south coast of the UK. But completing a 100-mile run in one go is a bit out of our reach at the moment. So we split the trail down into 4 days to make a bit of a holiday of it. Yeah, I know. As mentioned, this is day 4, and the night before we stayed in a place called Lewes. So here we're rejoining the South Downs Way, which was actually a nice 4-mile track down the Sussex Ouse Valley Way. To keep costs low, we actually booked our accommodation off the National Trail, which meant we actually covered around about 116 miles over the 4 days, which did make it a bit more challenging than we needed, especially taking into account that we ran a marathon only 2 days earlier. Now, the first 2 days were sadly a bit of a washout, which is typical when you kind of plan anything here in the UK. First day was rain on and off, but it was at least a reasonably short day of only 25 miles. Day 2, however, had the worst weather. We basically had to cover best part of 30 miles in the pouring rain. Now, here we are, we are just crossing the River Ouse, which means we're back on the South Downs Way. Now, luckily, day 3, all the weather flipped over to glorious sunshine, and as you can see, same here for day 4. Some horse riders there in the background. The South Downs is an all-access trail, so you can actually cycle, horse ride, walk, run, do whatever you want, which is nice as most of these national trails are kind of restricted by styles that kind of mean you only have the route on foot possible. Now, the day after we completed this, they actually had an ultra 100-mile run over the whole length of the South Down Way, which I've not seen the results for, but looking at their site, the record currently stands at 18 hours 49 minutes and 47 seconds, which is absolutely mind-boggling. To be honest, they have 36 hours to cut off, but sub 24 hours is incredibly impressive. Now, this route is very, very upsy downsy, and we're talking about an elevation of about 12,000 foot, which is one of the things we've been lacking in our practice ahead of our Hadrian's Wall Challenge. And it's one of the main drivers why my wife picked this trail to go for. We've got a bit of a limp going on there. You'll see that I've got quite a lot of tape on for this run, both on my knee and on my Achilles tendon as well. Basically, I woke up on day 2 with a bit of a limp. My calf had basically tightened up so much because I didn't do any stretching the night before, so it's basically my own fault. I have, however, been left with some absolutely epic tan lines. I actually used a new KT, which basically because I forgot to pack the one I had. And this stuff is actually by a company called Neo G, which says it's water resistant. And by the time we're here on day 4, I'd actually soaked it in a bath at least a couple of times, and it didn't peel whatsoever. Actually, I lied. There was a tiny corner which snipped off, but compared to the stuff that I had been using up to date, which basically peeled off while I was running, this one lasted until I had to rip it off right at the end. Now, we're heading down here to a village called Ouse, which is where we had lunch, which is a really lovely place to be and highly recommended, either visiting on foot or driving. So this is the path out of Ouse and back down the South Downs Way. Now, it's interesting when you get out of the village, you are kind of presented with 2 options. You can either go inland to Eastbourne or via the coast, and both of these routes are considered to be part of the South Downs Way. Now, along the path you kind of come across loads of sections where they push cyclists and horse riders one way and walkers another. However, you mostly follow the same route, but here you basically have 2 completely different paths that you can take to get to the same destination and cover the same distance. So it's a bit more of a choose your own adventure. Before you get there, you are heading down to a place called Friston Forest, which we're just about to enter here. And this is where you decide whether you're going inland or down the coast. And we decided to go coastal route. Now, we started off downhill, which sounded great. Certainly a lot better than going up the hill, until we hit these steps back up the other side. And look at that, you can see that face that's saying, I've had enough, let's get this done. And here we are, we're heading back out the top now, so what goes up does come back down eventually. And we are heading towards the Cuckmere River, which is the start of the somewhat famous Seven Sister Cliffs. Now, this is the first time I've ever been to this part of the country. I'd kind of been to Brighton, but I kind of skipped out all the rest of the coast past Eastbourne till around about Hastings, I think. And this was, you know, clearly a huge mistake. I can only think that I'd had enough of what I assumed would be beach-style lifestyle. But as mentioned, this area of coastline is called the Seven Sister Cliffs, which runs from Cuckmere over to Burling Gap, which is basically where all the tour buses stop, and there's a massive car park, cafe, all that kind of usual thing. So even though we were exhausted by now, the views from here were fantastic. That said, the less said about the brown coastal water, probably the better, I think it's safe to say. Now, together with our marathon on the weekend before, together with this 100-mile route, we actually managed to cover over 140 miles in a week, which it's fair to say has broken me a bit. There's actually more than I'd normally run in a month completed in a week. We also then did an 18-mile walk on the weekend. Well, I say an 18-mile walk come pub crawl at the weekend. And I did a 5-miler on treadmill. But I'll be honest, that treadmill 5-mile has probably done me more damage than good, especially as we've only got 6 weeks now until our Hadrian's Wall run, so not ideal. Now, we did manage to try out a few approaches on this trail to see which one worked out best for us. On day 3, we did a long run in the morning before having a late lunch and then a short walk in the afternoon, which, to be honest, proved really, really hard on the feet. So today, on day 4, we changed tack and we ran up to lunch, but kept it quite short, as you saw there. And then in the afternoon, we did a walk-run approach, so running the flats and the downhills, and then just walking uphill when it got really hard. Now, so although most of this recording makes it look like we ran the whole thing, realistically, we didn't. We couldn't, more to the point. There's plenty of walking involved. And quite honestly, our walking, or my walking at some points, was about as fast as my somewhat limped jogging anyway. We also found that having one of us in front, basically leading the other, helped massively. So when you're really, really tired, basically every part of your brain says stop. But when one of you's in the lead and kind of like starts up at a sensible running pace, it prompts the other person to keep on going. So it's kind of like a very slow pacer, but it did work really, really well for us. I think that's something we're going to adopt and go for on the Hadrian's route. So as you can see here, exactly the same thing. You see someone just slightly jog past and then you kind of kick off and start yourself. So constantly going back and forth between whoever's in the lead just to keep the other person motivated. So there in the distance is Beachy Head, the somewhat notorious Beachy Head, and Beachy Head Lighthouse. We actually stopped at a pub just on the other side of that, and here we are now heading into our final destination of Eastbourne. So thank you very much for watching, and I shall catch you in the next video.